Mike Petruchenko and Katie Brugling, to St. Catherine's mainstays, at least in my experience when I was rowing here as a junior. Of course, my name is Brent Duncan.
And I'm Allie Zimmerman.
So thank you to, again, Mike Petruchenko, local mainstay here in St. Catherine's, and to Katie, the new incoming head coach at Queen's University Rowing.
We
And if
are
you,
just joining in to the start of the under 23 lightweight men's four. They're off to a clean start. You can see the conditions a little bit bumpy up at the start.
in the lane closest to you, you'll get the Argonaut Rowing Club, followed by the South Niagara Rowing Club in lane 3, St. Catherine's in lane 4, University of Victoria in lane 5, Monmouth in lane 6, and New York Athletic Club in lane 7. I know that the University Victoria crew, bow pair are the Gulka brothers. I believe they raced for British Columbia in the Canada Summer Games last year, and they are actually stroked by Ellis Hollins, who I believe both Ali and I have rowed with.
Absolutely. What we can see in this event is that we have 4 crews out of Canada and 2 Americans on the far side. Exciting to see crews from Ontario as well as out in BC.
And of course, the St. Catherine's crew, coached by Tom Kent, he's been working with the lightweight program here in St. Catherine's for 5 or 6 years now, at least, I believe. Tom's again, as I've said, and Mike was saying earlier and yesterday, there's a couple coaching names you're often going to see on draws here in St. Catherine's. Tom is certainly one of those, and
It's anybody's race as we come through the first 500, but it certainly looks like St. Catherine's coming through just barely ahead of University of Victoria.
and not to leave out South Niagara, they're definitely in it as well.
Nice out of Argos as they come through that first 500. It does look like the conditions tend to be a little bit rougher towards the start. It looks like it's sort of getting a little bit calmer, but they're certainly having to contend with some large waves today.
Yeah, that does make sense. It is a northeasterly wind. The course kind of runs south to north, so when the wind does have that 2 kilometer stretch to pick up, it's just going to build up that momentum. So that top 500 is almost certainly going to be the worst water, as it does have kind of the clear alleyway of the open course to kind of pick up that momentum. It really will make that top 500 challenging, but as those athletes come through and survive, and the longer the race gets, the flatter that water should get. So they'll have to be able to, make sure that they're really clean at the top of the course, and then be able to hopefully not get too complacent through the rest of the race.
It doesn't look like anybody's taking their foot off the gas here. Their stroke rates remain quite high. You can see all boats within our shot right now are really fighting it out, but this field has separated a little bit from the first 500. As we pan through at the 1,000-meter mark, this is the halfway mark in the race. It looks like on the far side...
I think that's New York Athletic Club, as well as UVic and St. Catherine's, all coming through in a bit of a pack.
UVic looking like they have almost an entire boat length over top of Nyack. It looks like this is their race so far. There's anybody's race for second place presently.
If you are just joining us, this is the 136th Royal Canadian Henley. We are day 2 looking at event number 29, the men's under 23 lightweight 4. About halfway through this race, where University of Victoria is leading the St. Catherine's Rowing Club, South Niagara Rowing Club, and New York AC, followed then by the Argonaut and Monmouth Rowing Clubs. Really exciting race. If you are not familiar with lightweight rowing, what this means is these athletes, as male athletes, they'll have had to weigh 72.5 kilos. It's about 160 pounds every day that they've raced. I see that this is not a straight final, so they have come through some races before, probably some heats a day or two ago. So they'll have had to weigh in those days, as well as, they might be racing lightweight tomorrow or on Sunday.
These athletes are racing for the GW Paddy Klein Trophy. Paddy Klein was a Leander rower out of Hamilton and then became the head coach of Leander Boat Club after the 1936 season. He was selected as a coach for the Canadian 8 at the cancelled 1940 Olympic Games and again in 1948, as well as a coach of the Coxed 4 at the 1952 Helsinki Olympic Games. His cruise shell was damaged in transit, and they would finish out of the medals in a borrowed boat.
And we come in, you just see UVic doing a really good job striding here, following stroke seat Ellis Hollins. I see they actually have it rigged as a starboard side stroke, but following starboard, following Ellis, he's doing a really good job setting a tone. They've opened up on New York AC, followed by South Niagara, followed by St. Catharines. So Ellis and the rest of the University of Victoria athletes doing a really good job coming into this bottom 500 of this race.
These are under 23 athletes, so they have to prove that their date of birth, they will not turn 23 this year. So younger athletes for sure, but certainly a lot of experienced university competitive athletes in this race.
And of course, University of Victoria, always one of the stronger programs in Canada in terms of university programs, always boating really competitive crews, looking at always sending a couple athletes, sometimes more than a couple, to the national team or to various national teams like the World University Games, under 23s, and even the senior team.
You can see here in the bottom 500 into the bottom 250 as the buoys change from yellow to red. The conditions certainly look much more favorable than they were up at the start. The University of Victoria, they are just gunning for it. Their stroke rate has come up significantly, and they are just going to try and lock down a win as the New York Athletic Club really charging through in lane 7. It looks like they are making up a little bit of a move here on the outside. Let's pan through and see what happens. Could be an exciting finish.
I think it will be exciting. I think it's not quite enough race left. I think University of Victoria is going to hang on as much as NYAC is charging. We're through the line in 3 or 4 more strokes, and it does look to be University of Victoria. And Ellis is just elated. Look at that. And of course the Gulka brothers and their final, the 3-seat, Chris Clark. So good job to those athletes. Congratulations to the University of Victoria. Unofficially, of course, taking the men's under 23 lightweight 4.
Yeah, it certainly looked like Nyack ran out of a little bit of real estate, but an excellent push through the finish to try and give University of Victoria a little bit of a run for their money.
And as you were saying, yeah, the conditions are significantly more calm here in the bottom 500 compared to that top 500 if we're looking at the 2 different shots.
A great race for everybody in that one involved. We are just joining in now. We are joining into the under 23 lightweight women's pair already in progress. We are just watching them as they come through the first 500 meter section of the race. Lane 2, just out of our shot, is Leander. Lane 3 is University of British Columbia. Lane 4, Vesper. Lane 5 and 6 is the Whalen Weston crew. And Lane 7 is Ridley Grad.
Does look like we're being led right now. UBC over in lane 3 doing a really good job. A little bit of open water over really the rest of the field, which is pretty impressive when you consider Vesper has been doing very, very well in all of the senior women's races we've had so far this week. And of course, at Ridley Grad, the bow seat, Sean Donnelly, she'll be a teammate of the UBC athletes. Sean is, of course, a University of British Columbia athlete herself, just lives in St. Catharines and apparently came home for the summer.
Certainly challenging conditions when you consider that these are younger athletes. They're under 23, lightweight women. They're going to have to deal with being bounced around a little bit, having to stay control of their boats. You can see here in our shot the umpire with the flag up on the right side of the screen, trying to make sure everybody's having a safe, clean race.
Does look like they are having to do a little bit of help. The umpires trying to keep some of those boats straight. As we were saying, it's not only a headwind, but a bit of a crosswind. So it can be some really challenging conditions, especially in a pair, particularly I think a lightweight pair. There's not much mass holding the boat down. It can get bumped around and moved around. So keeping that straight course, of course, it is a coxless boat. There are no coxies in these crews, trying to keep the crews straight It's all going to be on either the bow or the stroke, who's going to have their foot connected to the rudder with a bit of wiring, and really just coordination and cooperation between the two athletes.
It looks like survival is kind of the name of the game here. The ladies from UBC looking like they're having a very strong race. Of course, Grace Hardwick Brown and the Brown in the bow seat from UBC having just raced the senior lightweight pair earlier, really only a couple hours ago.
And of course, getting bounced around, that might be actually one of the advantages for the University of British Columbia. They do train on tidal water on the Fraser River, just at the right next to the Vancouver Airport over in Richmond, BC, out of the MS John Leckie Boathouse. That river, very notorious for rapid changes in the current from the tidal changes.
At the 1,000-meter, it certainly looked like UBC with a commanding lead over top of Vesper, followed by Waylon Weston, Lasix, and Ridley Grad.
Yeah, and you can just see there some of the umpires with their white flags out, helping the athletes stay kind of in their lane, trying to limit the impact that crews who are having a more difficult time keeping their course. The umpires are just going to help them and try and prevent them from impeding on other crews.
For sure. The umpires, they've told me specifically, we're not here to help you steer. We're just here to make sure that everybody has a good, clean, fair race.
Clean, fair, and safe. I also had some conversations with some umpires, notably my mother this time, making sure that we are very clear that it's about safety and fairness as well. One interesting fact here about Lane 6, one of the Waylon Weston crews, just looking at the crew lineup, looks to be a pair of sisters, Jamie and Jenna Cook. We see that a couple times so far throughout the week, in some of the races. You'll get these, family crews, and just interesting to see sometimes. I think I was mentioning earlier, particularly in the pair, you have to be coordinated and cooperative with your partner, and I have to wonder, as an only child, if that would just help the time you spend with your family, if that would just, there's maybe something supernatural there. Maybe I'm going out too far on a limb here.
UBC looking absolutely commanding as they stride away. They are taking full advantage of a little bit of cleaner, flatter water. Of course, their coach, Zoe Fettigwin. Zoe raced for Team Canada 2014 for the under-23 national team in the women's four. She's probably absolutely ecstatic.
Yeah, UBC with a commanding lead here coming into the bottom 500 of the women's under-23 lightweight pair. I was saying before with the previous race, the men's under-23 lightweight four, which also went to a West Coast crew in the University of Victoria. These athletes will have had to weigh in every day they have a race because they are competing in obviously women's lightweight events, as much as the men were 72.5 kilograms, which is about 160 pounds. The women's weight is 59 kilos, which I believe is about 130 pounds, which it just adds that extra dynamic, not only to the playing field, meaning everyone has gone through that process, weighs the same, presumably has similar strengths, but it's just one more thing to consider as you're an athlete, making sure you're on top of hydration and recovery and fueling, and of course, being at weight.
You can see the field behind them. It looks like a considerable amount of steering trouble happening in many of the crews. Definitely, it's part of the learning process for sure, but it doesn't seem to be an issue for University of British Columbia as they stride away. These women are competing for the Lancaster, Brooks, and Welsh 125th anniversary trophy. The St. Catharines law firm of Lancaster, Brooks, and Welsh was established in 1886. The trophy was presented at the 125th Henley to commemorate the firm's 125th anniversary. One of the partners, Rob Welsh, was a long-time public address announcer in the Henley Grandstand and is active in recreational rowing at St. Catharines. The trophy was made by Leon James, the goldsmith who repairs, engraves, and adds new shields to each of the Henley trophies after each regatta.
And here we just see into the last stretch of the red buoys, University of British Columbia coming through the line in the women's under-23 lightweight pair. Not really too hotly contested for the bottom half of the race. Well done to those athletes.
That's really fantastic to see. The nice little fist bump there from we have Grace and Renee from the University of British Columbia. So big congratulations unofficially to UBC winning the under 23 lightweight women's pair.
Yeah, you can